In the interest of full disclosure, I was kind of reluctant to do this video. The APX isn't what you would call one of Beretta's greatest hits. And since I've gotten mine, there's been a fairly massive refresh to the line. And to boot, this is the pistol in my collection that I have by far the fewest rounds on. Up until this video, I hadn't even put 300 rounds through this. But then it hit me. This pistol needs to be a turning point for Beretta. The APX was Beretta's entry into the Modular Handgun System Competition that would ultimately see the Sig P320 win. Well, I think the competition was a bit of a goat rope. That's not what we're here to talk about. The Beretta APX uses a fire control chassis very similar to what the Sig P320 uses. In fact, mine started out life as an APX compact. Not an APX A1 compact, but the APX compact. And you're really seeing how complicated Beretta managed to make this. In the beginning, there was the APX line. The APX full size used a 4¼ inch barrel and a 17 round magazine. Then there was the APX compact that used a 3.7 inch barrel and a 13 round magazine. Then right in the middle there was the APX Centurion, which retained that 3.7 inch barrel but used a medium sized grip with a 15 round magazine. Then when the refresh came around to the A1 line, the APX Compact was completely dropped from the line, while the APX Centurion became the APX Compact. Seriously, you're just... Beretta made this as complicated as the Habsburg line. You're probably understanding why I really didn't want to do this video now. In its 13 round guise, the APX Compact shot, not great. Because I couldn't get my pinky on there, it was pretty much just a round for moral support, and the top-heavy slide led to it wanting to walk around. I ended up getting a Galloway Precision magazine extension, and this gave me enough of a grip that I could finally put the pistol through its paces. The recoil is exceptionally mild. Now, I think that's due to the weight of the slide, and it kind of dampens that recoil. But even so, because of the weight of that slide, it tends to feel a little bit ponderous in the hand. Swapping to the medium-sized grip module of the old Centurion flavor or the APX Compact of the new A1 line goes a long way to alleviating this problem. With the whole of your hand on there, you're able to impose your will on the gun, and this gets rid of a lot of that inverse pendulum feeling. And now you can see some of that Beretta know-how shine through. In quick strings of fire, the APX wants to stay pretty settled, and the sights are on the larger blocky side, and you can achieve some pretty decent precision with them. The trigger has 5 millimeters of take up to the wall and then rolls through the break with 6 millimeters of over travel. Mine breaks at 4¼ to 4¾ pounds. The reset is at 8 millimeters, and the trigger return spring could stand to be a lot stouter. The trigger feels like it's kind of annoyed that it has to follow your finger to do it all over again. It's not a terrible trigger, but there's a lot for trigger snobs to complain about on here. The magazine release is a large button that's easy to hit, and magazines come out fairly swiftly, though I'm always one to want my empty mags to come out at Mach Jesus. The slide release is very reminiscent of a Glock, and I feel like it's a bit of a fumble point, though I will admit that about 10 years ago, all the tactical dudes wouldn't shut up about slingshotting the slide. The trigger guard does deserve special notice because it's easily one of the most generous ones I've seen on the market. If you live in an environment where you have to wear gloves, then that alone should move this up on your list. The cocking serrations, or ribs if you please, are an interesting design choice that gives the APX something of a brutalist aesthetic. This is a major departure for Beretta, as they usually lean towards more classical design influences. And these didn't stick around long. This is probably the most apparent thing that changed on the A1 refresh of the line. They are quite effective and function well, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that the APX is an elegant looking pistol. Reliability has been stellar, especially when you consider that I haven't touched this thing for around 5 years and it's just collected dust in the safe. I won't lie to you about the fact that the APX was a bit of retail therapy for me. In the early days of the pandemic, the clinic that I had just become manager of was shut down and we were only allowed to see very specific emergent cases. So I went to the gun store as one does. And then this sat on my desk as something of a fidget toy while I waited for calls on an emergent case. Then after a few weeks, the medical world got very, very busy. And I haven't cleaned it since those first few hundred rounds I put through it, and still haven't. And it hasn't had a single hitch. I probably ought to get around to cleaning it at some point. The APX had the bad luck of coming out just as pistol-mounted optics were becoming popular. Companies like Sig and Smith Wesson, and, well, many other manufacturers found solutions to this fairly quickly. Beretta was, and still largely is, struggling with this concept. The A1 series is optics ready, but it's not the best solution because of the high presentation of the optic. I would like to get my APX milled for an optic just so I can kind of give it a chance to play on a more even footing with some of my favorite pistols. There we go. Failed to lock to the rear because of that stupid slide release. With the APX not getting as warm of a reception as Beretta would have liked, I'm fairly sure they're cooking up something new, and the lessons learned from the APX better play heavily into that. Convoluted product families, difficulty future-proofing, and losing contracts to SIG made the APX just disappear into the background. It's kind of forgettable. It's not what you think of when you think about a premier striker-fired pistol, but after shooting it a bit more, I don't feel like it's fair that I forget it so often. If Beretta wants to get a win with a striker-fired pistol in the 21st century, then there's a lot of things that need to be brought over from the APX, and maybe just as many things that should be left alone. Anyway, if you stuck around this long, I just want to say thank you. Leave a like and a comment so we can fight back the algorithm, and subscribe because I've got a lot more coming your way.